If you have a cell phone or a computer or pretty much any device that uses storage, at some point in time, just like me, you're going to need to find some way to get those files, photos, and videos off the device because you're running out of room. Typically, everybody goes out and buys a flash drive just like this, and even though they're small and compact, the transfer speeds are really slow. And if you want the fastest speeds possible, you're going to need to buy an NVMe drive, and then once you do that, you're going to need to buy the enclosure for the NVMe drive, which are usually pretty big and bulky, and then you have to worry about the cable that also comes off the drive so you can transfer your files. But what if I told you you could get the speeds of the NVMe drive in the form factor of the USB? And you don't have to worry about carrying around any cables to actually use the device. This is the VANSUNY Ultra Portable SSD drive. This little drive is so small you can actually fit it in that little pocket that are in your jean pants or pretty much anywhere else. It's also got a really solid build quality. It's made of a zinc alloy. There's no plastic parts on this drive. And like I mentioned before, you don't have to carry around any cables to use it because it uses USB 3.2 Gen 2. So we've got a USB Type A and a USB Type C port. So if you've got an older device or a newer device, you're still going to be able to use this drive. And in this video, I'm going to put this drive to the test in a couple different scenarios on a few different devices. We're going to see if you can actually get those 1,000 megabytes a second, any problems I ran into, and I'm also going to show you what I actually like to use this drive for the most. I also want to let you know that VANSUNY did send this out to me, but I'm not being paid for this review, and everything I'm telling you are my own words. So the very first test we're going to do is on my Mac Studio M3 Ultra. This is the newest Mac Studio that you can get right now. You can see on the screen here, it is the 2025 edition, and we're going to be testing the USB Type-C drive first. If you want to get the fastest speeds possible from this drive, you're going to need to use the USB Type-C, but I will be also testing the USB Type-A so we can see what kind of speeds we can get with that as well. So we'll plug this in. And you can see on the screen here that the VANSUNY has showed up. I'll click on that. You can see that there's nothing currently on the drive. So first we're going to do a disk speed test, and keep in mind this is the fastest speeds that you can possibly get on this drive. Not necessarily in a real world scenario, just in a controlled environment. So we're going to select our target drive. It's going to be the VANSUNY. We'll open that and then we'll start our speed test. So that's actually really good. Now, before I mentioned that the VANSUNY could achieve up to 1,000 megabytes a second, but it seems like it's actually getting a little more than that. We're going up to 1672 at some points. It does come back down to around 960, but it also does go up to, again, like over the 1,000 megabytes that it's stated it can get. And then for the read, we're getting around 923 megabytes, which is definitely respectable. It's pretty close to that 1,000 megabytes that they state this can get. So pretty good results so far. Now I'm going to stop the test and I'm going to actually transfer a file here. I've got a 10 gigabyte file that I'm going to transfer onto the VANSUNY, and we're going to see how long it takes. It should be about 10 seconds because it's going to do about 1,000 megabytes a second, but we're going to see. So I'm going to put this onto the VANSUNY and we'll see how long that takes. So it says it's going to take about 10 seconds. And you can see from the read and write here, it's transferring at around, what was it, like 700 and I believe 29 megabytes. So it was definitely pretty quick. Again, this is a real world scenario. It's not going to be as fast as the disk speed test, but it should be around about the same as you're getting on here. So that wasn't bad at all. That was actually pretty quick. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer off the drive and we'll see how long that takes. So I'll put this back on here. And you can see about 10 seconds. It's actually moving pretty quick. It's moving at about, what, 980 megabytes a second. So a little bit quicker on the transfer off the drive. Of course, that's going to be with any drive you're going to be using, but it still seems to be pretty quick. And as far as the heat, the drive is just slightly warm after doing that test. So now I'm going to plug the VANSUNY into my USB Type A port on the back of the Mac Ultra, and we'll see what kind of speeds we get there. All right, so I just plugged in the VANSUNY to the USB Type A port. You can see that it just popped up. So there we are. Again, there's nothing inside of it. So we're going to select it again for our disk speed tests. VANSUNY. And we'll start our testing. So interesting results for the write. It seems to jump up to about 1,000 and then it drops down to around 443 megabytes, which is probably more realistic as to what you're going to get. And as for the read, it's going to about the same as the write. We got 431, and for the read, it just simply goes to 431. It doesn't go up to 1,000. So I'm not quite sure why it was going all the way to 1,000 at first and then kind of dropping. Seems like we got 630 there. Yeah, so around 500 to 600 for the write and 432 for the read. So we're going to stop that. And then we're going to transfer our 10 gigabyte file and we'll see how long this takes. So this is saying it's going to take less than a minute. Of course, we're getting about half the speeds or maybe less than half the speeds as the USB Type-C. But again, you can see that it's still moving fairly quickly. Over on the right side here, it shows we're getting about 410 to around 460 for the megabytes per second. So now I'm going to delete this and we're going to transfer the file back onto the drive and we'll see what kind of speeds we can get there. So it's showing almost about the same. It's going to take less than a minute and it shows about 455, 460 for the megabytes a second. So it's about the same for read and write. So definitely not bad at all for the USB Type-A connection. Again, if you want the quickest speeds possible, you will need to use the USB Type-C side. And as far as the heat goes, it's a little bit hotter than it was before. Still not hot, it's just a little warm. And in case you're wondering, the drive is formatted in exFAT, so you could use it with PC or Mac. So now I'm going to erase the drive and we'll format it in a format that you can specifically use only for Mac. I'm going to use the APFS. We'll erase this. That was pretty quick. And we'll try our testing again here. So here we are back with the VANSUNY. You can see the drive is totally cleared out. And just to show you that it is formatted correctly, you can see it's APFS. So now we're going to do our speed test again just to make sure that everything is the same. And it should be. I just wanted to make sure it was. So you can now see that the drive is not going past the 437 up to 1,000. It's just simply going to about 440 and about the same for the read. Now I'm curious to see what happens with the USB Type-C side, if it actually goes up to the 1,600 that was going up before, or it just stays around 1,000. So I'm going to stop this. I'm going to eject the drive here. We'll take this out. Plug this back into the front here. Here we are back into the VANSUNY. Make sure the drive is selected, which it is, and we'll start our speed test. So now that it's formatted in the APFS, it seems to be getting much slower speeds. So there we got the 950 and 936 on the read. So it seems like depending on how the drive is formatted, you might actually get slower speeds. But we're still getting about the 1,000 megabytes that it stated it can get. So I'm going to stop this test. We're going to transfer my file onto the drive. We'll see what it says here. And you can see that it's getting about 1,000 megabytes of transfer speed writing to the drive, which is definitely a plus. That was pretty quick. So now I'm going to transfer the file off the drive and we'll see what kind of speeds we get there. And again, we're getting about 1,000 megabytes. So the disk speed test is not conclusive, but actual real world testing with the file is what you're going to really get when you're using the drive. So it seems like when the drive is formatted in the APFS, you're getting faster speeds in real world usage versus the disk speed test. But when it was in the exFAT, it showed quicker speeds on the disk speed test versus actually getting quicker speeds in real world usage. So depending on what you're going to be using the drive for, I would definitely recommend formatting it for that particular device. Now, the one thing that I like to use my VANSUNY for is to get all of my photos and videos off my iPhone because I'm running out of storage. This phone has a 512 gigabyte storage capacity and I'm using a ton of that storage. And just to show you how much I have left, you can see there's a 512 and I only have 369 gigabytes left. So I need to get some of these photos and videos off my phone onto the drive for safekeeping to give me some more storage. So all you simply need to do is plug in your VANSUNY into the bottom of the phone. I've got a really thick case on here and it still fits perfectly fine. We'll go into my files here just to show you that the VANSUNY is there and it's right here. Click on that and you can see it's totally empty. So all you need to do is go into your photos here. We're going to select a whole bunch of photos and videos. And then I'm going to say save to files. We'll select the VANSUNY, which is already there, and just click save. And it'll move all those pictures and videos right onto the VANSUNY. You can see they're all right here. It was super quick, very easy to do. So now you can add a lot more storage back onto your iPhone and keep all your photos and videos safe on the SSD drive. So now we're going to test the VANSUNY on my PC. This is running Windows 10, and we're going to start off with the USB Type-C. So you can see the VANSUNY just popped up. We don't have anything on the drive here, and this is the E drive, so we make sure that we have that selected in our testing. Test out the VANSUNY. And this is the latest Crystal Disk Mark as well. We have the profile set for peak performance, and settings are for NVMe SSD. So we're going to start off our testing using 1 gigabyte chunks. So you can see that it's showing the read speeds as about 1,000 megabytes. Now we're moving on to the right. And we're getting about 347. So it's a lot different than what we were getting on our Mac. Not sure why the write is so low, but we do have the VANSUNY formatted in exFAT. So I'm going to format that in NTFS and we'll see if that has any effect on the speeds. So we're going to change to NTFS, quick format, format complete. Go back into our file here. So you can see that it is here. There's nothing on the drive. And we're going to select the E drive again. And we'll start our testing over. This time we'll just do all. So you can see for our read speeds, again, it's doing 1.1 gigabits per second. And we're getting about 1059 for the read. So now we're going to move on to our write. And it still looks like it's getting about 350 megabytes a second. So again, I'm not sure why the writing is so low. It's a lot different than when I was using it on my Mac. It might have something to do with my system, but I'm not 100% sure. All right, so it looks like we're all done with our testing here. This is all the speeds we're getting. Again, read 1059, and for the write 349. So again, not sure why the write is so low. It should be about the same as the read. It should be maybe about 950, but we're only getting 349. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to transfer my 10 gigabyte file onto the VANSUNY, because as we saw with the Mac, the disk drive testing is not the same as real world testing. So I'm going to move the same 10 gigabyte file onto the VANSUNY that I was using on my Mac. So we're getting about 302 megabytes a second for the transfer speeds. And that's about the same as what we're getting on the testing. So just a little bit less than the test. All right, so now that we've seen that, I'm going to move the file back off the VANSUNY onto my NVMe drive on my computer, and we'll see what kind of speeds we can get there. And that was super quick. I mean, that was just transferred in way quick speeds, probably quicker than 1,000 megabytes a second, because this is a 10 gig file. So it should have taken at least 10 seconds for that to transfer, but it was actually quicker than that. So for the read, it's actually pretty quick. I'm not sure why it's so slow on the write. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to eject the VANSUNY, and I'm going to plug it into the USB Type A port, and we'll see what kind of speeds we can get there. Then for our USB Type A testing, I'm going to plug it into one of my fastest USB Type A ports possible so we can get some accurate speeds. So the drive just showed up, and you can see that we've got nothing on the drive here. So we're going to transfer this 10 gigabyte file onto the drive, and we'll see what kind of write speeds we can get. And it's showing about 266 megabytes a second. And the port that I just plugged the drive into is capable of doing 1,000 megabytes. All right, so now we're going to do the opposite, and we'll move the file onto my computer, and we'll see what kind of read speeds we can get. That was super quick. All right, so much quicker on the read than it was the write. So I'm going to delete this here, and then we're going to go on to our crystal disk testing, select the VANSUNY, and we'll do a full test. And for the read speeds, it's looking like it's doing about 1,000 megabytes, which is 1 gigabit. Yep, 1,045. So that's definitely impressive there. And for the write, again, we're getting about 312. So it doesn't show too much of a difference between the USB Type-C and the USB Type-A side for the write. But it seems like we're getting about the same for the read, no matter which side you use. And there's our full testing there. Another thing that this drive is absolutely great for is for storing media such as your MP3s or dash cam footage. If you happen to have a Tesla, I've got a Cybertruck, or a car that just simply uses a USB drive to store all of your MP3s on it. You can see inside my glove box here that I've got my VANSUNY all plugged in to store all of my media and store all of my dash cam footage. So during my testing of the VANSUNY drive, it seemed to perform pretty well, especially on my Mac Studio. Now, the USB Type-A port that I was using for this drive is only capable of doing 5 gigabits per second, and that's why we saw half the speeds that we were supposed to be seeing, whereas on the USB Type-C port, we were actually seeing more around the 1000 megabyte mark. Now, I'm not sure why the drive was performing poorly on my PC. It may have been a conflict with my hardware, it just maybe didn't like something in there. But for the USB Type-A and the C, we saw about 1000 megabytes for the read, but for the write, it was much slower. It was typically around about 300 megabytes. Again, I'm not sure why, because the both USB Type-C port and the USB Type-A on my PC was more than capable of doing the 1000 megabytes, which we saw for the read. It's just the drive was having some issues for the write. So I'm not really sure why it was doing that there, but this drive seemed to perform perfectly on my Mac Studio. And this being a 1 terabyte drive for only about $69, I definitely think it was a pretty good value, because not only can you use it for your PC and Mac, but you can use it for any device that uses storage. Like I showed you my iPhone, you can use it for your car if it has the capability of using the flash drive to save dash cam footage or put your media on. It works perfectly fine for that, and getting those videos and photos off your iPhone is definitely a huge value versus spending hundreds of dollars for extra storage on your iPhone. So again, if you guys want to pick this up yourself, I will be putting product links in the video description. And if you guys enjoyed the video, please let me know by hitting that like button and consider subscribing. Thank you all for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.